Ilia came in, beat the two best in the world, and is bouncing out of the weight class, and the lightweights are already interested in fighting the featherweight champion. But will he vacate the belt? Ilia Topuria says that he's done with the featherweight division and he wants to move up to lightweight to fight Islam Makhachev for his title, but if Islam is not ready by around April, Ilia said that he would go up and fight Charles Oliveira. This is what Ilia says, quote, "Maybe there's a change coming. Yes, very likely you saw my last fight at featherweight. I like to move up to the next weight class, and since Islam Makhachev is the champion fighting in January and he won't be ready for April or May, I like to fight against the #1 contender right now, who's Charles Oliveira," unquote. I don't know if Charles would be interested. He said he wants to fight for the title next, but Ilia is such a big name. It's a big fight. Maybe Charles would still be willing to fight Ilia Topuria instead of getting his lightweight title shot. But with Ilia moving up to the lightweight division, if Charles doesn't want to fight him, who gets the title shot? Did Ilia do enough at featherweight to earn a title shot at lightweight? Or Charles beating Michael Chandler, coming off a split decision loss to Arman Tsarukyan, is that enough for him to get a rematch against Islam? Ilia sees the best way to determine who is the #1 contender is for him and Charles to fight. He's not interested in fighting Diego Lopes, Movsar Evloev, Aljamain Sterling, Arnold Allen, or any of these featherweight contenders. So we may have just seen the last of Ilia Topuria at featherweight. One title defense. Now he's implying that he's going to vacate the title, because when he says he's done with featherweight and moving up to lightweight, that sounds like he's going to relinquish his belt, which is the right move to make. You know, he doesn't want to hold up that division. Vacate it, then move up to lightweight. All power to him if he does that. And I think the Charles Oliveira fight is excellent, but we want to see him defend the belt more. Diego Lopes is right there. Alexander Volkanovski deserves a rematch. Movsar Evloev, Aljamain Sterling, Arnold Allen, and in the future, John Silva. That's one of my dream fights at featherweight. Ilia versus John? How crazy would all those fights be? And they're all different styles too. Movsar and Aljamain have the wrestling and grappling offense against Ilia Topuria's style. But then there's Arnold Allen, who's more well-rounded and has really good footwork. Then there's Diego Lopes, who has good grappling, but he will strike with Ilia Topuria in crazy exchanges. Then there's John Silva, a dynamic striker with excellent takedown defense. Ilia Topuria wiping out the previous generation of the featherweight division was so exciting because it brings up the new talent. The new generation is here, and he gets to be the first one to win the belt out of them and defend it against all of them. A new chapter of the featherweight division, and he doesn't want to be the guy. He doesn't want to be the champion that starts that chapter. He wanted to be the end of the previous chapter and then move on to another book. And honestly, if he just vacates the title, goes up to lightweight and has success over there, it's going to undermine the featherweight division moving forward, because whoever wins the belt after, everyone will say, but they're not Ilia Topuria. Or they'll say, we wish that the next champion and Ilia would fight each other to determine who is the best featherweight in the world, because as long as Ilia never loses the belt in a fight, it's going to be so difficult for any other fighter to prove themselves better than Ilia Topuria, because he just beat Volkanovski and Max Holloway, knocked out both of them in a single year. The next champion doesn't have an option to fight both Volkanovski and Max Holloway. If Diego Lopes is beating Movsar Evloev, Aljamain Sterling, and Arnold Allen, can you say he's better than Ilia until they fight each other? It'd be really hard to say so, even if Diego has a few title defenses. He never beat guys like Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. That's a whole different level. It's really exciting to see Ilia at lightweight. Like, who doesn't want to see the Charles Oliveira fight, the Islam Makhachev fight? But on the other side, you want to see him defend the belt more and earn that jump up to the next weight class so he doesn't have to vacate his belt, right? Get 2 more title defenses, beat Diego Lopes, beat Movsar Evloev, then go up to the lightweight division and fight Islam Makhachev while holding on to the belt, trying to become a double champ simultaneously. But this all stems around that he wants to retire in 3 years. So it looks like he got into the sport trying to get the biggest fights possible and then retire as soon as possible as well, which in theory it's great. You know, every fighter should be striving for that. But as a fan who is used to champions staying there for a long time and defending the belt over and over again as much as they can, that's kind of what we want to see from Ilia Topuria as well. But for him, like, if you were in Ilia's position, would you not do the same thing? After being Volkanovski and Max Holloway, would you not jump at the opportunity to fight bigger names like Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev compared to the featherweight contenders, right? Even though Diego Lopes is a very dangerous fighter for Ilia, the name value isn't there for him. It's not even on the level of Charles. It's not on the level of Islam. Ilia wants the biggest fights. Whether I completely agree with it or don't, I agree with it in a way, but I also agree that he should defend the belt more. Regardless, whatever he does, it's going to be exciting. If he jumps up the lightweight, he has to vacate that belt. belt and not hold on to it. I can also imagine, after beating fighters like Alexander Volkanovski, one of the greatest featherweights of all time, arguably some people say the greatest featherweight of all time, top 10 GOATs of the sport. Then there's Max Holloway, also top 10 GOATs of the sport, one of the greatest featherweights ever. Knocking both of them out to go to fight Diego Lopes, Movsar Evloev, Arnold Allen, Aljamain Sterling. It's like, I mean, Aljamain's a big name, right? But at featherweight, even though the challenges are still very high, the name value, the interest, the motivation might not be the same, right? Going from fighting those legends to just contenders at the moment don't seem like motivating things for Ilia Topuria. And what might motivate him is going up to fight Charles, go up to fight other legends, big names in the sport, Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira. And I know people are going to say, oh, but what about John Jones? He wanted to do that too. It's always going to be an argument with John Jones. If Ilia holds on to that belt at featherweight, then it's a similar criticism with him and John Jones, right? If he vacates the belt, that's what Jones didn't do, right? We all said if Jones vacated the heavyweight title and fought Stipe, nobody would complain about that. The only complaint was him defending the heavyweight title against Stipe. That's different, right? He was holding up the weight class. If Ilia doesn't hold up the weight class, vacates the belt and jumps up to lightweight, that's fine. We love to see him defend his belt at featherweight more, but if he wants to vacate that belt, go up to lightweight then. Now, another thing could be is Alexander Topuria is also going to make his UFC debut, and he might go to the featherweight division, so maybe he's making room for his brother to build up his legacy while he goes up to the next weight class, gets a few more fights, and then retires. That may be like the strategy of him and his brother creating their own legacies. So again, we all knew that Ilia was going to retire soon, but we did not know he would be done at featherweight. Jump up to the next weight class after one title defense. Now, a fight with Charles Oliveira, that's a dangerous fight because Ilia would probably want to stay standing with Charles, but he's got the kicks, he's got the reach, he's got a very good jab, he's a lot more patient with his offense, more technical, but at the same time, Charles doesn't have the best chin. Ilia could knock him out. He might be the best boxer Charles has ever fought, while also having a speed advantage as well. It's a very dangerous fight for both fighters. I think Ilia would win, but not confident in that. I could see Charles finishing him, maybe knocking him out in the stand-up, or dropping him and then submitting him after. Such an amazing fight, and I do not see him beat Islam Makhachev. I don't think it'll be easy for Islam, but I do think Islam would win that fight. And with Ilia moving up to lightweight, Diego Lopes says that he wants to fight Alexander Volkanovski, and hopefully that would be for the vacant title. So it looks like Ilia is not going to fight Diego Lopes. He's not going to fight any of the other contenders, and hopefully he vacates his belt soon enough for them to fight for the vacant title, right? Because of him never fighting at featherweight again, like he's saying, allow for Volk and Diego or Movsar or whoever it is to fight for the vacant title. And that's the other thing as well. You have 3 contenders at featherweight that all deserve a title shot. Volk, Diego, and Movsar. What do you do with them 3? Because 2 of them have to fight each other for the vacant title. Does Volk's immediate rematch trump both Diego and Movsar, so he has to be part of that fight? Or do you do the rematch between Diego and Movsar and then Volk can wait out for the winner or something? I think Volk has to be in that fight, which means who do you pick over the other? Diego or Movsar? Movsar does have a good argument because he beat Diego, but it was on short notice. And Diego did just beat Brian Ortega, and he did the UFC a favor with fighting Dan Ige on short notice too. So he took 2 fights on short notice, right? Movsar, on the other hand, is undefeated in the UFC. Some close fights. I thought Arnold Allen won their fight, but it was very close. Aljamain was a close fight as well. I see how either fighter could have won that. The main argument for Movsar is that he does have a win over Diego. But the thing is, Diego did beat top-ranked Brian Ortega. So I don't know who gets a title shot, but regardless, it should be a really good fight with Alexander Volkanovski. Now, I think Diego has a better chance of beating Volk than Movsar does because he's just so much more powerful, and Volk may not have the same chin. Getting knocked out back-to-back like that, Movsar's going to fight technically and using his wrestling more than anything, so that's a better fight for Volk stylistically than Diego, who's going to test that chin right from the beginning, and also is very dangerous on the ground. Even though Volk is technically a much better striker than Diego, the guy has a chin, he hits very hard, one exchange, and Volk could be knocked out, even if he is the more technical striker of the two.